Hello and welcome to third grade. I am your teacher, Mr. Ritenour. If you'd like to make this video bigger, click the YouTube button below. All right, so today is going to be a very quick lesson. It is all about Easter, since this Sunday is the big day. I hope that you learn a few things, and if you really want to make me happy, you will share those things with your family. All right, because that's what learning is all about, folks, is learning and teaching other people. So, 5 things to think about this Easter. Number 1, Jesus rose from the dead. That's the whole point of Easter, is Jesus' resurrection is what we call it. So, Easter is a celebration of Jesus Christ's resurrection from the dead. About 2,000 years ago, a man named Jesus was born. All right, that's Christmas. Here's a picture. So there's little baby Jesus on Christmas. All right. That's the holiday we celebrate his birth. According to the Bible, Jesus was the Son of God. During his life, Jesus performed many miracles. Here's a picture of one. It's a famous miracle of Jesus stopping the storm and walking on water. He also turned water into wine. He healed people. He made the deaf able to hear and the mute able to speak. He even raised Lazarus from the dead, performed many miracles. Okay? He even gave his own life to save his friends. Jesus was crucified on a cross, died, and rose again 3 days later. So here's a picture of him on the cross, right? Called a crucifix. After 3 days, he returned from the dead, symbolizing his victory over sin and death. Anyone who believes in Christ will also defeat death and live eternally in heaven. Christians all around the world celebrate Easter, Jesus' resurrection, and the promise of everlasting life. So here's a picture of Jesus resurrected from the dead, all right? Notice the light shining down from heaven on the white robe to signify he is pure of all sin. So Christians believe that Jesus did die and he actually came back to life 3 days later on Easter, and that's why we celebrate Easter. So that's the first thing. I said there were 5. Second thing to remember about Easter is Holy Week. The day of Easter gets a lot of attention, but did you know that there are other special days leading up to Easter Sunday? A week before you find your Easter basket is called Palm Sunday. So the start of Holy Week is actually the Sunday before Easter. Most churches give out palms, they're small branches, to symbolize the day that Jesus entered Jerusalem and everyone laid palms at his feet. So here's an image of that for you to see. So Jesus came into Jerusalem on a donkey, and those branches that they're laying at his feet are called palms. And that was to symbolize that he was a very important person. They only did that when the king would arrive into the city. Thursday, which would have been yesterday, is called Maundy Thursday, and it marks the night of the Last Supper where Jesus commanded his disciples to love one another. So I have a famous picture of Da Vinci's Last Supper. So in the middle, you've got Jesus, and then to his side, you've got his 12 disciples. Now, the Last Supper was a very important meal because Jesus commanded his disciples to love one another as he loves them. And that was the famous meal where he broke bread and said that it was his body, and he poured out wine and said that it was his blood. And if you go to church, you might recognize this because it is called communion, and we still practice communion in Christian churches to this day. All right, so that's Monday, Thursday. Friday, which would be today, is called Good Friday. Now, I always wondered why it was called Good Friday, because it marks the morning of Jesus' death on the cross, his painful death on the cross. Saturday, which would be tomorrow, is called Holy Saturday, and it marks the time um, of Jesus actually going down into hell and defeating the devil. So in this picture, you've got Jesus. He's the one holding the staff with the cross. He's stepping on the devil, and he's setting um, all of these people free from hell, uh, because the Bible states that unless you believe in Jesus, you cannot go to heaven. So Jesus has to come and rescue all these good people from hell after he dies. All right. So that is the build-up all the way until Sunday, which is called Easter, and that marks the day of Jesus' resurrection, as we talked about on the last slide. So the whole week has a bunch of stuff going on, all leading up to Easter, and that's called Holy Week. All right, third, Easter eggs. If Easter is about Jesus, why do we spend time decorating and hunting eggs? Well, to find that answer, you need to go back thousands of years. The early Christian church made a rule that forbid any Christian from eating meat or eggs during Lent. Now, for those of you that don't know what Lent is the 40 days leading up to Easter. You might have heard somebody say, like, oh, I'm giving up chocolate for Lent. Okay? Giving up things for Lent is kind of a popular thing to do, especially in the Catholic Church. But people have been giving up things for Lent going all the way back till the early church. And one thing that everyone had to give up were eggs. So on Easter morning, the hungry children would go find all those eggs that the chickens were laying during Lent, and then they would eat them all and have a big feast. So nowadays we actually use plastic eggs with candy inside, but the tradition started with actual eggs. They would actually go find the eggs that the chickens laid, and they would get the eggs, and then they would have a feast. So that was kind of like the first Easter egg hunt, was finding real eggs that the hens laid. Okay, so decorating Easter eggs comes from a Ukrainian tradition called pisanka. Pisanka looks like this. How cool is that? So highly skilled art form of pisanka, which is decorating eggs. So according to legend, when Mary Magdalene went to the tomb where Jesus was buried, she brought a basket of eggs and a whole bunch of other things too, like spices and stuff for Jesus's body. But when she got there, Jesus wasn't actually there. It was an angel. And the angel told her that Jesus is risen. And she walked out of the tomb and she started crying. And she looked up and then she saw the risen Christ. And legend has it, at that moment, the eggs turned bright red in her basket as a symbol of Jesus' bloodshed. Now, I've also heard a version of this story, same story until the very end, when the eggs turned not red, but a rainbow of colors as a symbol of heaven in Jesus' resurrection. So, whichever story you want to believe, they both have the same premise of Mary Magdalene had a basket of eggs, and when she saw Jesus, they changed colors. So there's a picture for you. All right, moving on. Number 4, the fourth thing that you need to know is about the Easter Bunny. Now, the eggs make sense now that we've talked about it, but what about that bunny who hides baskets? Well, this tradition is actually a lot younger. The Easter Bunny is only 350 years old, right? So young. Well, ancient for a rabbit, but not nearly as established as the 2,000-year-old traditions that we've already talked about. The Easter Bunny came to be in Germany. It would hide gifts and eggs for good children and leave nothing for the bad kids. So here is a picture of the original Easter Bunny, carrying around Easter eggs for the good kids. See them in the background waving. Some countries, like Australia, don't actually have native rabbits. So instead, of an Easter bunny, they have the Easter Bilby, who drops off baskets of candy to good boys and girls. Here's a picture of the Easter Bilby. Look at that. It kind of looks like a bunny. It's cute, I think. Um, so instead of the Easter bunny, it's the Easter Bilby. All right, boys and girls. The fifth and final thing, gratitude. Easter is a time to be grateful. Take a second this Sunday to thank your parents for taking care of you. Make someone a card or give your siblings a hug. Instead of trying to be the first to get food, let others go before you. Remember what I always say, the last shall be first and the first shall be last. I am grateful for each of you and am giving you all a great big virtual hug. Happy Easter. This is the last picture that I have before we went on shutdown. So thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you remember those 5 things that I just shared about Easter. As a bonus opportunity, if you are struggling at all with math or would just like a refresher, I'm going to do a quick recap here. And I'm also going to do a quick slide on making an inference. So feel free to turn off the video now and go have fun. You're officially done. You just need to fill out the Google form. If you'd like to stick around for a few more minutes, you're more than welcome to. I'm just going to be reviewing some math stuff, all right? So if you're leaving me, happy Easter. I love you. If you're staying with me, get a piece of paper and a pencil. Let's practice. Okay, so I tried to share something similar on Wednesday night, but I could tell not very many people were paying attention on the Google Meet. So let's just quickly review here. If you count all of these shapes, you've got, sorry, if you count all the sides on these shapes, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 on each, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So all these shapes have 4 sides. What do we call 4-sided shapes that all have straight sides? They are called quadrilaterals. Cha-ching. Now, it's hard sometimes to remember the names of the quadrilaterals. For the most part, though, you should have at least half of them memorized by the time you get to 3rd grade. So for instance, the blue shape. Everyone can tell me that is a square, right? And the red shape. Everyone can tell me that is a rectangle. It's the other half that are a bit more challenging. When you have a green shape, okay, so look at the green shape. When you have a shape like the green that has equal sides, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 sides that are all the same length, but you don't have perfect corners. Right? This corner is acute, this corner is obtuse. You have kind of like a square that got sat on by a bus, which is why this shape is called a rhombus. All right. Well, look at the purple shape. It's like a rectangle, kind of. You've got like top and the bottom like a rectangle, but then your sides are all pinched in. When you have that, it looks kind of like a trap, which is why we call it a trapezoid. So a rhombus is like a square got sat on by a bus, and a trapezoid is like a rectangle got turned into a trap. So if you can remember those 4 quadrilaterals, you are going to be ready for 4th grade. Now, we also talked about angles. 3 main types of angles in 3rd grade. The first one is the perfect corner. Look at my blue angle. It is a perfect corner, okay? This is the angle right here in black. What do we call a perfect corner? It's just right. If it's not just right, if it's smaller than a perfect corner, see this? It's smaller or less than. We call that good. That's an acute angle. What if it's bigger than a right angle? See this one? It's bigger than a right angle. It is definitely obtuse. That word means larger. So you have three types of angles: a right angle, acute angle, and obtuse. There is a bonus angle that we haven't talked about yet, and that is just a straight line. Believe it or not, right here is an angle. Doesn't look like it because it's a straight line. It goes 180 degrees like a rainbow. That is called a straight angle. So that's your bonus here. Okay, so last math review is the type of lines. Which lines are parallel? Oops, I don't like that I used that color. Which lines are parallel, folks? Well, parallel lines will never cross, ever. They go either straight up and down, side to side, diagonal, but they run across from each other. So which two lines are parallel? Good. The blue and the yellow. So the blue and the yellow are parallel. And I can actually move these lines here. They will never, ever cross, ever. They're running in the same direction. Well, we also have another type called perpendicular. Perpendicular lines, if you recall, are lines that cross at a perfect corner, all right, at a right angle. So we actually have two pairs of perpendicular lines. Which one does the blue run perpendicular with? Does it run perpendicular with red or with green? Yeah, blue and red. So if you can imagine right here, my blue line, if it were to keep going past the end of my shape, and my red line were to keep going, check that out. You've got a perfect four-way stop here. You've got four right angles. So the blue and the red corner are perpendicular. Okay? So besides blue and red, there's another set of perpendicular lines. Do you see the other perfect corner? Good. You've got red and yellow. So right down here, you see that these lines meet at a perfect right angle. Good job. Yay. So there is one other type of line that does not meet at a perfect right angle. It meets either at an obtuse or an acute angle. And those are called intersecting lines. There are two places where our lines intersect. The first is the blue and the green. Right here. Do you see how they meet, but they don't meet at a perfect corner? Those are called intersecting. Well, then there's one other spot too. You've got another corner. That's your green and your yellow. I'm talking about right here. This corner is an acute angle. It is not a perfect corner, which makes it intersecting and not perpendicular. All right. So you've got blue and yellow as parallel. You've got blue and red as perpendicular. You've got red and yellow as perpendicular. And then you've got green and blue and yellow and green as your intersecting. So those are your three types of lines. All right, last review before I sign off. So I want you to make an inference. Okay, an inference is a guess that that requires you to already kind of know some background information about something. All right, so using your own experience, make an inference. You ready? You are watching TV when all of a sudden it turns off and the lights go out. What could you infer? Think about it. I think there's a couple things, but the first one would be that the power went out. That would probably be, I think, the best answer. So your power goes out and you lose your TV, all your lights. All right. See how the author didn't tell you that the power went out? The author just said that the TV was off and so were all the lights. That's when you have to actually take a guess at what happened. Okay, boys and girls. Thank you for sticking around. If you did for the review, I hope that it helped. These are hard things to understand, so that's why I wanted to give you some extra practice. I found out yesterday that school is actually canceled for the rest of the year. And by canceled, I don't mean you don't have to go to school. I mean we're not going to go back into the building at all for the rest of the year. So sadly, we will be continuing all of our learning online. But I think everyone's been doing a great job with that. And I just want to say thank you to your parents as well for helping you and making sure you're logging in every day. So far, we've had perfect attendance, and I couldn't be more proud of you. Okay, go have a great Easter. I love you guys, and I'll be thinking of you. Try to get outside a little bit too. All right, Mr. R is officially out.